Meeting 3 of the Senate Standing Committee on Education will come to order. Please call the roll.
Senator Carroll. Senator Givens. Senator Higdon. Senator Meredith. Senator Neal. Senator Rawlings.
Present.
Senator Reed. Senator Thomas. Senator Williams. Senator Wilson. Senator Wise. Vice Chair Tishner.
Present.
Chair West.
Here, we have a quorum. We are duly constituted to conduct business. Normal rules of Education Committee are to silence your cell phones. No signs are allowed in the committee rooms. If you wish to speak for or against a measure, you need to sign up at the sign-up sheet in the back of the room before you're allowed to speak. Do we have any members with introductions? Senator Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we're not allowed to have pages this year, but I have taken it upon myself to have, from time to time, people shadow me. Have a young man shadow me today, Mr. Tyler Overton. Tyler's here with me for the entire morning and afternoon, so I want the committee to welcome Tyler today.
All right. Make him feel welcome. Senator Thomas, I didn't know who I was speaking with. You were sitting over there with your glasses up. You're normally sitting right here every single time, so you changed it up.
I want to be a little less obvious today.
That's not a bad thing. Up next, Senator Tishner.
Yes, I have with me another person that's going to shadow me today, Michael Smelsley. He's from my district, goes to Oldham County Middle School. He spent the day with me last session and had so much fun he wanted to come back. So happy to have him here.
Welcome to Education Committee. I apologize for the delay, but we were starting the meeting because several people were stuck in traffic on 64, but most people are in now. We are going to go a little bit out of order to accommodate that and allow people to get settled. So up first on the agenda today, we have Senate Bill 3, an act relating to school district finances. Senator Tishner knows the deal. Make sure your green light is on. State your name for the record and proceed.
Senator Lindsay Titchener, District 6. Okay, thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Today I am presenting Senate Bill 3, which is a bill about financial transparency for our school districts. Senate Bill 3 will strengthen requirements for financial transparency for our districts and expand the general public's access to the budgeting process, financial reports, and spending information in order to ensure our taxpayer dollars are utilized properly and effectively for the education of Kentucky's public school students. SB 3 mandates budget and financial spending transparency for all of our Kentucky districts. Of course, it will affect our smaller districts in a different way, and our more rural districts, this level of transparency may actually reveal how our boards and superintendents navigate their operations on a shoestring budget and where potential gaps in our funding model may exist. In our larger districts, it may reveal the opposite and shed light in areas of wasteful misuse of taxpayer dollars, which will encourage our districts to do better managing their funding. The goal of SB 3 is to ensure our education dollars are focused on student learning and student achievement. Education money is ultimately for the educating of our students, and when monies are irresponsibly used elsewhere, once made transparent, a correction needs to be made. Recent significant budget shortfalls in some of our Kentucky districts have led to a deeper dive by our citizens who had accessed through open records requests various financial documents, credit card statements, procurement card receipts, and purchase order reimbursements, which revealed expansive misuse of taxpayer dollars. By reviewing information gathered from 9 various districts that span the state, a noticeable pattern emerged of heavy administrative expenditures for restaurants, excessive travel, various types of team building entertainment that stretched from Broadway shows to contracting bartending services, just to name a few. Our communities remain at the will of the board to see their already heavy property and occupational taxes increase. And when they become aware of the wasteful spending, it causes a reaction and has led to this piece of legislation as a direct response to make corrective action. SB 3 will set requirements for our budgeting process with full access for our school board members and in public view. The final working budget is required to be presented by the superintendent at a public meeting, highlighting specific details of the budget, including appropriations received from state and federal dollars, projected expenditures for personnel, transportation, maintenance, and materials for the operation of the district, any one-time major expenses, projected revenues and expenditures associated with restricted funds and facility funds, and costs associated with debts incurred, and how the 2% required minimum reserve will be maintained. SB 3 also mandates that school districts post on their main webpage for easier access to the public many already required monthly and annual reports, along with monthly credit card statements, the superintendent's contract, and any additional compensation, and the district's financial audit and the final working budget. There is a committee amendment, which is just correcting a few citations in the bill. So, Mr. Chair, I move for the adoption of that amendment.
Yes. Just for clarification, everyone should have a copy of the amendment in their folders. And want to hold on just a second. Senator Thomas, do you need a copy? Okay. Yeah, what the this was a good catch by KDE.
Yeah.
KDE is reading all the bills.
That's
And
wonderful.
so they caught it. They caught a small technical error in the bill, referring to as KRS instead of the section. So that's all this amendment does. Do we have a motion to adopt the amendment? Senator Wilson. Senator Wilson made the motion. Senator Wise made the second. This is a voice vote. All those in favor of adopting the amendment say aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Amendment is adopted. Do you have anything further to say on the bill?
No, I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay. Any questions from any members currently on Senate Bill 3? Senator Thomas.
Senator Tishner, one question. I noticed that by January 31st of the preceding budget year, they have to have a public hearing on the working budget. I didn't see in the statute a date by which they have to finalize the actual budget. Is that going to be in June or in May, or did you deliberately not put a date in there as to when they must finalize the actual budget?
So current statute already requires a draft budget by January 31st, a tentative by May 31st, and the final working budget by September 30th. So those dates are there listed in Section 1 for that final working budget to be presented September 30th.
Seeing no further questions, we have a motion on the bill from Senator Wilson. We have a second from Senator Reed. Please call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, excuse
Hold
me.
up 1 second.
I do have someone who had signed up to speak in favor of the bill.
I'm so sorry. Hold on just a second.
That's okay. She was stuck on
Yes,
64.
I apologize. Mrs. O'Brien. Yes. While Mrs. O'Brien is getting settled, I believe Senator Higdon has a question.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Tishner. I think transparency is great, and it helps
Missed that.
on both sides. It really makes a difference. I know just the other day I was reading a local paper, one of the 5 that I get, and said that the board had approved the superintendent a raise, but they never mentioned how much it was. And I could find out, but it'd take me a while to go
Yeah.
through the motion. So transparency is good. If they're going to give the superintendent a raise and they're going to put it in the paper, go ahead and tell us how much that was. And, there's a lot on superintendent's contracts that, what's reported in the news is the salary is not the full story.
Right.
And there's a lot of other things in a contract, and all that needs to be, public knowledge. It is if you know where to look, but in the locally is the best place for it, and not to have to go to KDE and dig through, negotiate their web page, and it's there. Mm-hmm. If you know where to look, it's there. But so, thank you for bringing this bill, and I think it's transparency is good. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions this time, I apologize, Mrs. O'Brien. Your name was on the list, and I thought you were here for Senate Bill 1. Please make sure the green light's on, state your name for the record, and proceed.
Hi, I'm Laura O'Brien. I live in Oldham County. I'm actually the one who kind of started the whole credit card thing. Senator Tischner's my senator, and so I had brought him to her attention. I originally did Fayette's, mostly just because they had recently renewed their superintendent contract, and so I was kind of wondering where all their money was going. Well, then that sort of snowballed into me asking other districts about their credit card receipts, and I primarily focused on districts that were anti-school choice, very vocally anti-school choice. And so when I had gotten their credit card receipts, they were just as shocking. And so the reason why I want to bring this up is because I greatly support this bill. And so some of the examples that I wanted to share that I had found, I know that we talk about Fayette a lot, but there's other districts with issues. So just as an example, Beechwood Independent, they had spent $1,200 in 6 months on Snappy Tomato Pizza. $8,000 on the Galt House. They went to Cinemark. Now that could have been a field trip, I don't know, but that was $13.95. So that was just Beechwood. I had gone through a couple other ones. Warren County, just in 6 months, had spent $6,500 on Chick-fil-A. That's a lot of Chick-fil-A. Then Pulaski County, and if you remember, Pulaski was the one that had actually gotten admonished by the Attorney General for their overt campaigning against Amendment 2. They have a restaurant there called Serendipity, and someone had spent $8,459 at Serendipity Restaurant in Pulaski County in just 6 months. They also spent $6,000 at the Galt House. So another thing I looked at was Berea. And if you have heard anything about Berea, their superintendent just got fired, stepped down for mismanagement of funds. And had we caught this sooner, maybe we could have saved taxpayers just thousands and thousands of dollars. I added up some of their expenses, and just in a little over a year, they spent $21,000 at the Galt House. So the reason why this bill is needed is because there's not any oversight on these little, you think a little bit isn't a lot, but when you get the Galt House 27 times, like, what are they doing? I don't understand why they're not in Berea. So I support this bill for that reason. I would like to add, if you could, I know that it said that you're supposed to put the credit card statements online. I would highly, highly recommend that is coupled with the procurement card expenditure forms and any purchase orders, because as you can see from these, like just seeing the general credit card statement, it's only one piece of the puzzle. You don't really know why it was purchased. And there was an example in Fayette where they had gone to axe throwing. Well, one of the axe throwing purchases was for a field trip. I don't really know why I do that with kids, but the other one was for an adult staff outing for team building. So you see, you want the purchase orders to see, okay, was this for kids or was it not? So I would ask that in the bill that you include those documents, because otherwise you're just going to have a bunch of people getting mad about things that maybe are justified. And so that's my suggestion, and I really appreciate you all hearing this bill.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Do we have any questions from members for Senator Tischner or Mrs. O'Brien? Seeing none, the floor is open for a vote. We have a motion from Senator Wilson. We have a second from Senator Reed. Please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Givens, Senator Higdon, Senator Meredith,
I'll explain my vote, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed.
While I support the intent of this bill, I'm a no today because I don't think it goes far enough. Quite truthfully, I think we need to be more prescriptive in this. You would think that school administration, when it starts taking on the personality of a corporate C-suite, then somebody has to intervene. And I think we need to be more direct in what we as a Commonwealth will pay for and we won't pay for. You would think someone would have enough common sense when your school district is losing millions of dollars each and every year that trips to Australia are not appropriate. But if they can't exercise their judgment themselves, I think it behooves us to set those limitations. So, again, certainly supports the intent of the bill, but I think we need to go a little bit further. Thank you.
Senator Neal, Senator Rawlings,
Aye.
Senator Reed, Senator Thomas,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to explain my I vote and respond.
Please proceed.
I do support this bill. You know, I believe any time that you're using public monies and developing a budget, the public should have a right to comment. I don't have any problem with that. I did hear references, veiled references to trips to Australia, which obviously is a reference to my school district, Fayette County Public Schools. Again, I just want to point out a few things about that, again, factually. Number one, those trips have been taken in the past, 2013 by one superintendent, 2019 by another superintendent. There was no issue about that. Number two, those trips were taken in conjunction with a consortium involving the University of Kentucky and the Chamber in Lexington. So there were three major institutions that supported having those global cities network. And I will submit again, and I do that so unapologetically, that our children today don't compete with just children in Kentucky and do not compete with just children in the United States. But our children today in the learning process compete with children worldwide. And the sooner we understand that, I think the better off we are. And then thirdly, issues regarding first class tickets or necessary expenditures have not been documented. If someone showed me that documentation, I'll be glad to reject that. But there's no indication that those expenditures were wildly unnecessarily. I want to point that out again, but I am an aye vote on this bill.
Senator Tishner,
Can I explain my I vote,
Please
Mr.
proceed.
Chair? Thank you. I just want to briefly respond to Senator Thomas. I'm going to vote aye, obviously, for this bill, and also Senator Meredith. I agree. I think we could make it stronger. We always could. I'm always one to make a stronger bill than a weaker bill if I can. So I would support any amendments that we could discuss. In regard to Senator Thomas, I do have that documentation. I did an open records request, and I have proof of a $6,600 ticket to Australia for Superintendent Liggins and a $10,700 ticket to the same trip. So I'll be happy to get that to you.
Senator Williams, Senator Wilson,
Explain my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed.
I like this bill. Anytime you can have sunlight on your finances, especially as a public organization, I think that's perfect. You need to do it. I was manager of a nonprofit. I've done it a couple of times, couple of different nonprofits. And the last one I was with, we voluntarily did an audit on our finances through a firm every single year because we dealt with donations. We wanted to make sure that everything was above board. So I commend you on this bill, and I thank you for it, and I proudly vote aye.
Senator Wise, Chair West.
I'm going to explain my vote. I vote aye, and I just want to thank the sponsor for the hard work that you've done. I know that you worked with other senators. You took language from other bills and included in your bill to make a great bill. This is good government. As Senator Wilson has stated, this is shining the light of day on finances, and we've talked a lot about JCPS and FCPS. This this is across the board. This is for the whole state of Kentucky. And she's right. It's not just JCPS and FCPS. There are problems everywhere across the state. And it's good for the public to have this transparency, but it's also important. What we've seen is the people who are constitutionally elected to make decisions by the people don't have access to basic information. And if they do have access to information, it's not in a timely manner where they can make a well-reasoned decision on the number one thing they do, which is vote on a budget. So I thank the sponsor and thank everybody involved. I proudly vote aye. Senate Bill 3 passes with 11 aye votes and 1 no vote, with favorable expression, and the same shall pass. Up next on the agenda, SB 1, an act relating to education. Senator Givens, state your name for the record and please proceed.
Chairman West, members of the committee, State Senator David Givens, 9th Senate District, honored to be before you to present Senate Bill 1 for your consideration. I'd like to start, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, with a little bit of a timeline and then move directly into conversation about the bill.
Could you pull that mic just a tad closer?
I can do that. Is that better?
Yes.
Thank you. A little bit of a timeline on Senate Bill 1 and why we have it again before us. If you look at the story, and the story builds the context for why we're here today, regular session of 2022, the same language you see largely in the latter couple of pages of Senate Bill 1 is what we have before us again today. This body, this committee, and the Senate and the House passed Senate Bill 1 in 2022, targeting in a very positive way the role of the superintendent and the role of the school board in our largest school district here in Kentucky. We delineated what the role of the board should be around strategic planning, budget approval, audit reviews, hiring, firing, and reviewing the superintendent. We also clarified the role of the superintendent to oversee day-to-day operations and implementation of the board's vision for what the district should achieve and should be doing. That was the original Senate Bill 1 we had in 2022, and largely that's again the bill we have before us today. In fall of 2024, the state Supreme Court upheld Senate Bill 1 as passed in 2022. In December of last year, the court overturned its prior ruling, rehearing Senate Bill 1 and finding it unconstitutional. But in so doing, they gave us something that's rather unique. They provided us not just a roadmap of how to pass Senate Bill 1 to conform with the Constitution, they gave us what I call GPS coordinates. They gave us very clear direction on the changes that needed to be made in their opinion. That opinion states, and I read, "In sum, the record is devoid of any reasonable, articulable, natural, and distinctive reasons for the General Assembly's limitation of Senate Bill 1 to only a county school district and a county with a consolidated local government. Absent any explanation as to how Senate Bill 1 actually benefits the school district and as to why the powers Senate Bill 1 affords Jefferson County Superintendent should not be extended to other superintendents, we must reach the conclusion the statute violates Section 59 of the Constitution." In essence, the state Supreme Court said we did not provide reason for needing to treat the Jefferson County Public School District differently. So as you have before you today, Senate Bill 1, you see 42 reasons, starting with the letter 1A there on the first page and ending midway down page 8. 42 well-delineated reasons that this legislative body, which constructed the school board, is choosing to change the role of the school board. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm glad to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Senator Givens. We're going to open the floor up for questions now. We do have 3 individuals signed up to speak against, and we'll bring them up here shortly. Do we have any questions from members for Senator Givens at this time? Seeing none. Senator Givens, if you don't mind stepping aside for a moment. We have, if you don't mind, why don't all three of you come up at the same time? We have Maddie Shepard with JCTA, Superintendent Yearwood, and James Craig. Sorry about that. Whenever, make sure your green light's on, and whenever you guys are ready, state your name for the record and proceed.
I'm Brian Yost, Superintendent, Jefferson County Public Schools.
I'm Maddie Shepard. I'm the president of the Jefferson County Teachers Association.
And James Craig, I'm an elected member and the vice chairman of the Jefferson County Board of Education, east end of Louisville. I've got 2 kids in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll let you all decide who's starting and ending.
Maddie,
I'll start first. Yeah. Like I said before, I'm Maddie Shepard. I'm an elementary teacher serving as the president of the Jefferson County Teachers Association. I first want to thank you for allowing me to speak on Senate Bill 1 today. About a year after taking office as president, I convened a committee of JCTA leaders to lead our organization revising our organizational platform. The main things that we want in our organization, that we want teaching and learning and working to look like in JCPS. We convened stakeholders inside JCPS, such as the other unions. We also convened the community in Louisville via the Protect Our Schools Kentucky infrastructure that we're a part of. And we asked 2 questions. We asked, what are your dreams for teaching and learning in JCPS? And what do you want working in JCPS to look like? And so we took all of the data, we saw patterns, and these repeated answers, these patterns, informed our revised organizational platform. We call this platform The Schools Our Kids Deserve. And among the top aspirations of this platform, this vision are collaborative democratic decision-making and whole child and community-centered approaches to education. And so I'm here today to speak against this bill and ask you to vote it down because it represents a fundamental shift away from these 2 things, collaborative democratic decision-making and whole child and community-centered approaches to education. This bill moves toward centralized executive control and weakens community voice. It flies in the face of the values the stakeholders that we convened and the stakeholders that we represent said they wanted to see in our schools. At its core, public education in Kentucky is built on the principle that schools belong to the people and the communities that they serve. Locally elected boards, elected by Kentuckians, exist to ensure that parents, educators, and community members, not distant officials or a single executive who may or may not even be from here, you're great, but not a Kentuckian, have meaningful authority over how schools are run. This bill undermines that principle of collaborative, democratic decision-making by stripping power away from an elected board and concentrating it into one unelected administrator, fundamentally altering the balance of democratic oversight. And it's this oversight that our democratically current school board and JCPS is often criticized for not exercising enough of over our budget. And that is said may have saved us from the shortfall that we're experiencing now. The bill claims to preserve local control, yet in its practical application, it does the opposite. By sharply limiting how often the board may meet, narrowing its authority, and requiring a supermajority to reject superintendent proposed policies, the legislation reduces the role of elected democratically representatives to symbolic oversight rather than real governance. The bill turns the school board into figureheads instead of the real representatives Kentuckians deserve, well, representing them. JCPS serves a uniquely diverse population, linguistically, culturally, socioeconomically. These complexities argue for more community input, not less. Local board members are directly accountable to families, educators, and voters who experience the consequences of the policy decisions they make every day. Replacing that collective judgment with one unilateral executive authority risks policies that are faster, but not always better, not always fairer, and often less responsive to community needs. History, both in education and in public systems, shows that concentrating authority rarely produces more accountability. I know, I'm a social studies teacher. When decision-making is centralized, failures become harder to challenge, dissent becomes muted, and communities have fewer levers to demand course correction. And although this bill targets one district today, it establishes a precedent that the state may override locally elected governance whenever it deems a district to be too complex. That logic threatens every community's right to self-govern. Today it's JCPS, but tomorrow it could be any district facing budget stress. And as we've all noted, that's a lot of districts in Kentucky. Districts all over the state face enrollment decline or eventual political disagreement with state leadership. This bill says to Kentuckians, we don't trust you to choose your own school board that can do the job. It cuts Kentuckians out of conversation so they can't even engage or hold the district accountable. Real reform requires more democratic solutions, like the one proposed in Senate Bill 3. Improving financial transparency, for example, so the public can be better informed and better engaged, is a great first step at improving democratic solutions. I urge you to vote this bill down today, because efficiency can't be the sole measure of success in public education. Schools aren't corporations. Students aren't widgets or line items. Democratic and collaborative decision-making may be slower and messier, but it's essential to fairness, trust, and legitimacy. It makes for more democratic and community-centered approaches to education, which create the conditions for schools, the school districts, and the Kentucky our kids deserve.
This is my first appearance here before the Senate Education Committee. And I hope next time I visit with you, it'll be to talk about the great improvements in student outcomes we are making in JCPS. Today, however, I'm in a very rare position. It seems that you want to give me the more authority, but I'm here to tell you I shouldn't have it. I do assume that this doesn't happen often in these halls of power. Senate Bill 1 is simply restating language that was passed 4 years ago when JCPS had a different superintendent and some different board members. I can't speak to that dynamic. I can't. But I can tell you what is happening right now in JCPS. I have a collaborative relationship with our board, and that is necessary for us to succeed. We need all 8 of us rowing in the same direction, having one direction. And even though some may disagree, we still end up moving in the same direction. If we don't have that, if I'm rowing against or they're rowing against each other, we stand still. We go nowhere. And our children cannot afford that. If you couldn't already tell, I do have an accent. I'm not originally from Louisville, as my colleague here has alluded to. But I'm here. I love Louisville. I'm here to stay. This isn't but a temporary trip. I am here. We've fallen in love with Louisville. But I'm learning about this great city and the people who call it home. My board members know Louisville better than I do because they were elected by the people of Jefferson County. They give me guidance every day about how to navigate the complexities of our community. And I need that. I can't do this by myself. I'm learning. I don't think Senator Givens or anyone else means harm by this bill. Your end goal is actually my end goal. Better educational outcomes for our students. You want all of our students to read, write, and do math with proficiency. You want them to be prepared to be successful and have rewarding careers. That's what I want. That's what my board members want. But I'm afraid this legislation does not move us in that direction. This bill is about adults, not students, and that is where our focus should be. This bill is about a power dynamic of the past, and I want to focus on what's ahead, the future of our children in our Commonwealth. Many of you have talked to me about two top priorities. One, student achievement. Two, student safety. And that is my focus as well. I want to work with you on those priorities. You've already passed bills on both of those fronts. Senate Bill 22, Senator Hignan will hopefully go a long way towards guiding more people into the teaching profession. We need that. Senate Bill 181, which I know all people helped with, Senator Tishner, which strengthens the protections against predators. Excellent. I've already talked with Chairman West about Senate Bill 4 to give principals stronger leadership skills, because we know that they are the real difference makers for our teachers and our students. But Senate Bill 1, unfortunately, will mostly be a distraction in our community at a time where we need that common visioning for students. And the thing is, I know our board supports me in that vision. That's why they hired me last year. And as I said earlier, I hope my future appearances here in Frankfurt are focused on student achievement and how we can make improved outcomes a reality. I don't like being here to talk about government structures. I don't like being here to talk politics. That said, my board members and I have discussed ways we can focus our meetings and their attention to be more productive, more efficient with their time. And it's not about the quantity of board meetings. That's not it. It's the quality of those meetings and the information presented at them. So board member interaction is at the heart. It's at the heart of public transparency. Majority control of the of policy decisions, particularly financial decisions like contracts, is the root of our democracy. I appreciate your trust in me. I do. But I think we can make JCPS stronger by sitting down and discussing, you, me, our board members, looking at best practices to deliver a brighter future that our students deserve.
Thank you, Superintendent. And in your remarks, demonstrate why the board had confidence in him and bringing him on. He was sold to us as a change agent. He's done this twice in 2 other school districts with dramatic turnaround in student achievement, and we are hoping for the same outcome soon in Jefferson County Public Schools. My board fully supports him. Like I said earlier, I've got 2 kids in JCPS. I've got a senior at Eastern High School, captain of the soccer team, off on his way to the University of Kentucky in the fall. Proud of him. I've got a 7th grade girl in the Distinguished Math Scholars Program at Crosby Middle School, thriving, taking mathematics instruction right now that I did not have until I was a freshman in high school. My children are getting great outcomes in Jefferson County Public Schools, and I want the same for the rest of the students in Jefferson County Public Schools, and I'm willing to do anything to achieve that outcome. I'm not here to defend the authority that I have on the Board of Education. I'm here to work with you to do what is possible to get the same outcome that my children are getting throughout the rest of the county. I think through collaboration with the Senate Education Committee, specifically in Frankfurt, we've done that in many ways over the course of the 7 years that I've been on the Board of Education. Senator Wise, when you led this committee, the School Safety and Resiliency Act established standards, set goals for safety and for outcomes throughout public schools in Kentucky, and that has yielded tremendously positive results in Jefferson County. For example, you established a threshold of 250 students per one mental health professional in schools, recognizing the root harm of many of our issues is the mental health crisis amongst America's youth, and we are working towards accomplishing that outcome. You have worked to place SROs in every one of the buildings in Jefferson County, and although that has been met with some consternation locally, I can tell you that our schools are safer today, and that surveys from teachers and from families regarding school safety in Jefferson County show that they feel safer today than they have in years past. There's a history of collaboration between Frankfort and this committee specifically and Louisville that has yielded positive outcomes for Jefferson County Public Schools. I think that there's a path forward with respect to local governance that could accomplish the same outcome. Now, I appreciate Senator Givens' advocacy for the bill, and he came to my son's school and met with me and my board chair to talk about this issue a couple of years ago. I appreciate his input then and his willingness to come to Louisville and his continued advocacy for Jefferson County Public School students. The concern that I want to articulate today is that the governance structure that's included in Senate Bill 1 is the same governance structure that was included in the 2022. I understand that there's a strong belief regarding the last 4 pages of your bill. The devolution of authority from my board to the superintendent is the way forward to jumpstart outcomes for Jefferson County Public Schools. I want to tell you that if I thought that would happen and that was the path forward, I would be here speaking in support. I'm concerned that it's not. 2 significant crises in Jefferson County Public Schools have transpired in the last couple of years. The first, well publicized on the first day of school in 2023, our transportation crisis, was the direct result of our not mapping our routes well enough in advance for the start of that school year as a result of the new student assignment plan that we adopted in the summer of 2022. That was the cause. And I will tell you that a solution to preventing something similar from happening in the future is not less oversight, because less oversight then was the source of that problem. I'll take my ownership, full responsibility for my part as one of the 7 board members, one of this system's in that outcome. But I must tell you that less oversight of management would not prevent a similar outcome in the future. Better, as the superintendent said, higher quality supervision would. The other is the budget issue that we're facing right now. Now, many school districts, we have learned from an outside audit that we had conducted in the last 2 months, do not have forecasted financial plans, cash flow management plans for more than 1 year out. And that's something that perhaps that we could work together on, establishing best practices for financial planning in the future. But to the extent that you've seen it in the news and it is documented in the first 8 pages of Senate Bill 1, there is an issue with the current budget, and there is. It is because the board took the step of projecting that cash flow out and realizing the past superintendent's level of spending and the impact that it was going to have on our future ability to run our schools efficiently. Those are 2 examples of things that better governance, I think, could prevent in the future. But it's not less oversight, in my view, that would lead to that outcome. I would love to work with Senator Givens, and I would love to work with this committee if we could find an example in another school district of a better system of governance that would yield better outcomes for Jefferson County Public School students. You would have a partner in us, and we could work together to efficiently implement it. I worry that the devolution of authority and less oversight, less transparency that would necessarily follow from the last 4 pages of this bill might not lead to that outcome. Senator West, thank you very much for hearing from us today.
Thank you so much. Excellent presentation by all 3. Up first, we're going to open the floor up for questions. Up first, we have Senator Neal. Senator Neal, did you want to ask questions to this group?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, 2 questions.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much for the presentation. It was very important. I might have gotten part of the answer from putting those together, but I want to direct this to Superintendent Yearwood in particular. You mentioned the budget situation and the shortfall, which was referencing. Senator, I'm sorry, Senator. That's interesting. Superintendent Yearwood, doesn't that financial crisis, doesn't that justify extraordinary action such as something like Senate Bill 1?
Thank you for that question, Senator Neal. The financial challenge is real, so let's not, say it. But that's why we now have in place things like a multi-year structural balance plan. We have things like position control, hiring discipline. These are things that we're doing now. We have clear reserve targets. We have monthly budget monitoring. So to answer that question, we are fixing the problem with systems and discipline, not slogans. We're addressing those problems, sir.
Okay, given that, and why should the legislature trust JCPS to address those problems without Senate Bill 1?
It's a good question. But I want us to be judged by our metrics, not promises. I want us to look at the metrics that we are putting in place, things like a balanced budget milestones, things like cash, looking at our cash and reserve levels, things like transportation and on-time rates. And by the way, that's now at 98%. 98% on-time rates. Looking at our academic growth targets that we now have in place. So I want us to be held accountable to outcomes. And if we don't deliver on these outcomes, you will have the evidence. You will have that evidence. But hold us accountable to those outcomes that we're now having in place.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Does anyone else want to comment on that? Well, if you want to.
I would default back to what I said earlier. More oversight, more public input, and more transparency is the way to avoid what has happened in the past going forward in the future. Solutions like Senate Bill 3, I think, are things that absolutely get us there. Board member Everett, for example, and I worked together shortly when this became public, and we completely eliminated for a short period of time the approval of any contract for special services by the Board of Education until our financial house got in order. We would not have had that authority under Senate Bill 1. We would have had to request it from the superintendent to stop that spending. The hiring freeze that was implemented as soon as the superintendent became authorized to do so was done in conjunction with the Board of Education. I want to suggest that a hiring freeze in Jefferson County without the full support of the elected board would not have been successful under Senate Bill 1 as it was previously. So what I'm looking, I see tools that we have today that we would lose to solve crises like this. We're, as I said, we would love to work with you on a governance model. If governance is the problem, is the cancer that must be fixed in Jefferson County, I would love to work with you to find the cure together, identify past issues and what the cures should be going forward. But this is, in our view, a bill that leads to less transparency and not more. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Neal. Senator Thomas.
Dr. Yearwood, good morning. I'm over
morning,
here.
sir. Good morning, sir.
As you probably have heard, I'm Senator Thomas. I represent the city of Lexington.
Yes, sir.
My district is self-contained within the city of Lexington. I listened to your comments. Do you have Senate Bill 1 in front of you?
I do not, sir.
Okay, all right. Well, let me read this to you, and then you tell me whether you would agree or disagree with this, okay? There's a statement in there in Section 1. I'm reading from subparagraph X, and it says this: recurring operational crises, including transportation failures, safety incidents, fiscal instability and persistent academic underperformance reflect not merely programmatic shortcomings, but structural governance deficiencies that impede timely coordinated executive action. Do you agree with that, or do you disagree with that?
I disagree, because what you're alluding to there are systemic failures, and those systemic failures start with the administration. Because as you talk about academic failures, financial failures, we have departments, divisions, entire divisions that oversee those aspects. But if our systems aren't right, doesn't matter what kind of governance or oversight, it has to start at the systemic level, not at the governance level.
That's awesome. Thank you, Dr. Yearwood.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Any other members have questions at this time? If not, I'm Senator Tishner. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here today. I appreciate you taking the time. Superintendent Yearwood, we had a great conversation when I came and met with you with some of the other Jefferson County delegates, and you have a big job ahead of you. I had the opportunity to serve on the task force for JCPS. A lot of conversation about splitting the district has been ongoing for a number of years. And obviously that's a response to the way the district has been managed before your time here. And I think there's so much hesitancy to split the district. It's a huge undertaking and very complicated. But we can't keep waiting to make big changes, because when we look at the scores of the students in Jefferson County, we can't keep graduating students, 88% graduation rate, 15% reading proficiency with our economically disadvantaged. We can't keep sending students into the world not prepared. And we've been doing it for years in JCPS. I can completely appreciate your all's concern with changing the structure of the governance with SB 1, but I do think this is a strong move in a direction that can bring us a change that we need for our students. I did want to ask the JCTA, I'm sorry, Ms. Shepard, thank you, sorry. I wrote it down somewhere, but I didn't remember. You all contribute quite heavily to the board elected races. Am I correct? The last race for the board, I believe there were 4 seats up in 2022. How much did JCTA contribute to those school board races?
That actually would not have been JCTA's organization. That would have been our political action committee, our PAC, Better Schools Kentucky. I don't have that exact number offhand, but process-wise, we do interview candidates from the community that share values of public education and our values that would have been reflected in our organizational campaign platform, The Schools Our Kids Deserve, what I referenced earlier when searching for candidates and interviewing candidates that are interested for school board. But I don't have those numbers offhand.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Any other members have questions at this time? Senator Wise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Senator Givens, for bringing the legislation. And I didn't intend to even ask this question. Mr. Craig, I appreciate your comments that you made regarding the work we've done, especially going back to 2019 with the School Safety and Resiliency Act. I, once again, would not have asked this question, but with you bringing that up, my question is, by referencing that with SROs, how many armed SROs are within the Jefferson County school districts within the school buildings?
My understanding is that we've hired everyone that we've been able to hire that's been available in the local Louisville market. The last number that stands out to me is approximately 80 that we're at right now. We also implemented, in conjunction with the work that we did, Senator, on that bill, a position called school safety administrator to kind of navigate the local landscape inside of each individual building. It does not look like we're going to be able to keep that particular position inside of the budget, given the current crisis that we're in, but we constantly, our eye is on safety.
Thank you. It was my understanding that at one time those SROs were not armed, but they were outside of the school buildings and not within the school walls. So are those SROs armed and within the school buildings and within the walls and not in a parking lot or within a perimeter outside of the schools?
My understanding, yes, they're armed. They have access to the buildings today, and they are developing relationships with students inside of the buildings.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Yearwood.
You're welcome. Any further questions from members? If not, I've got a few questions. I first want to make a comment and just say how much I appreciate Dr. Yearwood. We've met several times, and you are coming into a tough situation. And I would like to say I think you're doing an excellent job, and I think it's safe to say that most of the members believe that this legislation being presented today has absolutely nothing with you personally or your leadership at JCPS. My first question is going to be for Mrs. Shepard. Did your organization or your PAC provide campaign contributions to the judicial race of Justice Goodwine?
We did.
Okay. How much were those contributions?
I don't have that information in front of me.
Okay. Did you read the articles in the paper that describe those campaign contributions? Did you notice those stories in the paper?
We did. I'm sure there were many other contributions to the Kentucky Supreme Court races.
Were those contributions approximately $250,000 or more?
That sounds accurate.
Okay. Is it possible, and wouldn't you see, is it possible to think that maybe the general public and even the General Assembly might view that as a quid pro quo for where we're looking at? I'll throw this out there. I looked up quid pro quo, a favor or advantage granted or expected in return for something. And what I'm talking about specifically is the case had been argued and ruled upon, and then a procedural, Justice Goodwine was elected, and a procedural motion was made to pull the case back. Do you see how some members of the General Assembly or general public might have some consternation with that?
I can't guess what the General Assembly might be thinking, but teachers are constituents like everybody else and have a right to use their collective power to contribute to a PAC like every other constituent in Kentucky.
Okay, thank you. These questions are directed at Dr. Yearwood. And we made sure you got a copy of the bill. I'm going to refer to a section of the bill. I'll read it for you and kind of go through it. Let's start on page 1, item D. I'm just going to read it. For me personally, there's a long list of provisions in here, and for me personally, this is like the money paragraph, the money section. It kind of sums up a lot of this. JCPS. I'm starting at line 19. JCPS operates one of the largest public sector budgets in the Commonwealth, managing an annual district budget of approximately $1,900,000,000, which constitutes the largest public school district budget in Kentucky, exceeds the operating budget of Louisville Metro government, is more than twice the size of the Commonwealth's second largest school district, FCPS, and is nearly 6 times larger than the next largest district, thereby magnifying the statewide fiscal risk associated with the governance, management, and financial decision-making within the district. That's item D. Do you believe that, after having said that, do you believe JCPS is a totally unique district by order of magnitude as compared with other districts in the state?
Yes, sir, it is. Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's a softball. That should be an easy one there. Having said that, do you believe that the legislature has a heavy oversight responsibility when it comes to taxpayer money, which would include your budget of $1.9 billion?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. This next question is maybe more of a comment than a question. As stated before, you're fairly new, and Senator Givens brings this bill, and there's a lot of history behind this bill. I've been here for nearly 10 years. Been here for 10 years. Some people call that a decade. And Senator Givens has been here quite a bit longer than me. And the most current reports we have are 41 out of the 55 lowest performing districts in the state of Kentucky are located within JCPS. Okay. Unfortunately, that is not a new thing. That is not a new phenomenon. That's been ongoing for 20 or 30 years. And to kind of just go along with Senator Tishner, some of the comments she made, and others, we've heard things are going to get better. We have a new 3-year plan. We have a new 5-year plan. We've been through multiple 3-year plans and 5-year plans, and it's at a point, as a former education commissioner called it, talking about the West End, we have a case of educational genocide. And so we think about these things every day, and we think that it's our obligation, not only from a fiscal standpoint, but from a professional standpoint, to make sure every kid has a high quality education, because ultimately we're on the hook. 50 to 60% of our general fund goes to education. And we also pay the Department of Corrections budget. And so if these kids aren't educated, we look at their reading scores at 4th grade. If they're not reading by 4th grade, that's an indicator they're going to prison. And so we understand where you're coming from. We believe it or not, we're totally supportive of getting the ship right and trying to help. But we believe it would be irresponsible not for this legislature not to take action. So that's my comment. We'll end there. Thank you for your presentation. At this time, we'll bring Senator Givens back up to the table.
Thank you.
Floor is yours.
Chairman West, thank you for the opportunity to reply to some of the statements that were made, and I appreciate the conversation around education policy. I wish all of our citizens had the passion for education policy that we have around athletics. Wouldn't that be most interesting if we were as engaged in our students' academic performance as we are in our basketball team's scores? But this is one of those days when we're all engaged, and I appreciate that much. I want to reflect on some of the comments that were made around relationship and collaborative relationship. And from what I hear, Dr. Yearwood has that with his board, and I'm excited that his vice chair indicates the same. And this legislation does not remove the ability for that collaborative relationship. In fact, I think it strengthens the need and responsibility of all engaged to maintain that relationship. Ms. Shepard spoke a lot about accountability, and I'm going to reply directly to some of the statements that she made regarding accountability, because I think accountability, as we saw with Senate Bill 3, and you heard the comments about transparency and accountability related to that legislation, I think a lot of the same comments can be made related to this, and I'm going to be pointing those out. But I want to start with the reason that we're here. We are here because we are the ones that are responsible. When I say we are the ones that are responsible, it's not just an ethical obligation, it is a legal obligation. And when I say we, I mean us as legislators are responsible for the performance happening across the state and in the Jefferson County public school system. Why do I say we are responsible? The board does not exist but for us creating them in statute. This board and every board is a creature of statute. We create them, we can redefine them, we can realign them, and we are responsible for their performance. So this is very real for each of us in this room. Now, Chairman, you interestingly enough read one of the bullets that I was going to highlight. When we talk about JCPS, with an annual district budget of approximately $1,900,000,000 and the size of that organization, there's legislation being talked about and filed and moving through the process today that deals with the roles of boards and responsibility of school boards. This is a unique school board. It is a school board, but the size alone makes it unique in so many ways, as you indicated from your statement and your questions. 8% of all the general fund SEEK dollars that we expend go to Jefferson County Public Schools. 15% of all the public school students in Kentucky are in the Jefferson County Public School system. This is a unique organization influencing lots of lives. Specifically to the collaborative relationship and the accountability pieces, I'd like to acknowledge and highlight two other items very briefly in the legislation. I'm on the top of page 6, reading item AA. Restructuring board responsibilities to emphasize strategic planning, fiscal oversight, monitoring of academic and operational outcomes, and evaluation of executive performance aligns governance practices with those required to manage complex public institutions responsibly. This is in alignment with the way that we should be running complex public institutions. In addition, I'd like to direct your attention briefly to the bottom of page 7. This goes very clearly to the accountability concerns. Vesting day-to-day operational authority in a single chief executive officer subject to defined performance metrics and board oversight promotes clarity of responsibility, accelerates decision-making, and strengthens accountability for results. In conclusion, I'd like to, and I appreciate, again, the words of each of those with a differing view on this legislation, but I'd like to acknowledge Vice Chair Craig. I've had the pleasure of meeting him. As he indicated, I was in his son's school, enjoyed that conversation a lot. Appreciate the passion of all of our school board members across the Commonwealth for what they do. But he spoke some words in an interview in 2023 that support what we're attempting to do with Senate Bill 1, and I'd like to read those to you. This was an interview performed with Wave 3, available online, and it's around the busing crisis. And he says these things. Well, remember what the Board of Education does. We approve budgets, we approve policy, we approve organization charts. We don't run the district. We aren't operations specialists. We hire the best available, we pay them handsomely, and we expect them to do their jobs well. Words of very clear support for what we're attempting to do with Senate Bill 1. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would entertain any questions.
The floor is now open for questions. Any members have questions? Going once. We have a motion on the bill by Senator Meredith. Second by Senator Wise. Please call the roll.
Senator Carroll.
Aye.
Senator Givens.
Aye.
Senator Higdon.
Aye.
Senator Meredith.
I'll explain my aye vote, Mr. Chair.
Please proceed.
I think people forget that we are a citizen legislature. We're here for 60 days this year. Odd number of years, we're here for 30 days. You don't have to be here very long to realize that the bandwidth to get legislation passed is very, very narrow. You will have hundreds of bills that will be filed during this session, every session, and at best we may pass 10 to 12% of those bills. I mention that because this is my 9th legislative session, and every session we deal with this issue, every time. And when we're dealing with this issue, we can't deal with the issues that are important to me, which is rural Kentucky. We represent 42% of the population and get about 10% of the attention. And as a result, the problems in rural Kentucky, which are principally identified by poverty, are getting wider and deeper every year. And when we bring initiatives forward, it's like, well, you need to stand aside because we've got to take care of this issue because they're bigger. I'm tired of waiting. Every session's like the movie Groundhog Day. Example, every year I've heard promises to do better. I heard the term, well, measure us by our outcomes. That's exactly what I'm doing. The outcomes have not been good over the last 9 years. Another indictment of this whole situation is Senator Tichenor's bill. Senator, you shouldn't even have done this. I would think the education community would look at the landscape and say, this needs to happen. Here's what we propose. But when you don't propose it, then we have to step up and do that. And it's disappointing. You know, Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That's exactly what we're doing. Again, speaking primarily from a rural perspective, I'm tired of rural Kentucky having to step aside, wait our turn, which never comes. This needs to be changed. This is a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Senator Neal.
I'd like to explain my no vote.
Please proceed.
First of all, Superintendent Earwood, welcome. I've followed you across the district speaking before many groups. You have not changed what you've said. You're very focused on your intentionality with respect to the district. I listened very carefully to the comments of Vice Chair Craig. It's very consistent with my thinking of how things should function, and I listened to the JCPTA representative because what we're talking about is undermining a very serious democratic principle. At the same time, I'm a critic too. I'm a critic of some of those outcomes that come out, particularly for people in my district, some of them. And I followed this for a number of years as well. And I recognize that that cannot persist. And part of that is the General Assembly, which is complicit in this, I would argue. It's very comfortable for us not to be where the rubber meets the road, right there on the ground where you have to do this work. But we have complicity in the outcomes as well. I'll argue that later when we get to the floor. So no hands are clean here. Except we have the comfortable position of saying, I didn't get mine, or who else is involved in this and whose interests are theirs, or why didn't you do things that we are complicit in that we could have helped bring a better outcome for people in my district and other places in the system. This is not a game. This is serious business, and I am encouraged by what I heard in the testimony here today. I am encouraged by the new leadership that I see, and I am encouraged by the collaboration that's been pledged and is apparently unfolding at Jefferson County Public Schools. And I do expect those outcomes from this system because there's great capacity within JCPS. We can always talk about those negatives. You want to address the negatives. You want to overcome the negatives. I'll be through just a second, Mr. Chairman, before you get to me. But this is not the time for this. All due respect to my good friend, Senator Givens, who is, I think, is a very thoughtful individual. He thinks through things. He knows what I think about that. I would encourage him to consider stepping back with respect to this, as well as some of my colleagues on the Senate, to give you the opportunity to do what you've said. In fact, the time frame that you're speaking of is very short in terms of giving us indications. You've already made tough decisions that I have not seen happen in the past, coming right straight to the door, dealing with financial crises and so forth. We owe you the ability to come in here and do what you say you will deliver, particularly because of the time frames that are involved. To do less to do less from a distance just because we have the answer and we don't. We don't have the answer. Senate Bill 1's not the answer. We can pick and peck all around the bill. It's not the answer. We don't know that. Only history will reach back and tell us if that answer or the steps we took are good or bad. So I don't want us to get into the arrogant brain. We got the solution. We're going to make this happen. No. What I'm encouraged about is the fact that we got a new person at the helm that is very consistent and focused, and we owe that individual along with this board, which is democratically elected. I'm a big Democratic guy, to carry out this responsibility, and I demand outcomes that serve those students because they deserve those outcomes, no matter what we're talking about up here. So can't nobody get as tight about this issue as I can. You can try it from here if you want to, but you're not. Because I've lived with it and worked with it in this district myself. But now I feel there's an opportunity. Now I have confidence in this process. Now I have confidence in the people. And I have confidence in the moment, and we should give them the ability to do that. I vote no.
Senator Rawlings.
Aye.
Senator Reed.
Explain my aye vote, Mr. Chairman.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, this bill is a priority, and out of respect for the bill sponsors and the gravity of this, I do understand the issue, and they have strong willingness to work on this important bill to maybe possibly improve it. But I look forward to seeing this bill through the long process that it will have to go through the General Assembly. But I find myself with concerns of any limiting of powers of a school board, because to me that they're the only elected officials in the whole circle of this educational system. I will say as a warning order, I will have future bills and possible amendments addressing similar topics and restoring powers back to the elected officials of the school board across the state. I try to champion every opportunity the idea that the elected are the ones who can be held accountable, because when you have bureaucracy, good luck trying to complain to them and make the changes that you do need. I do vow to offer my assistance to help improve this very imperfect system. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Thomas.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to explain my no vote, please.
Please proceed.
Mr. Chair, a couple of points at the beginning. Number one, as we look at the framework of our Constitution and how it sets out education, the Constitution requires us as state legislatures to fund public schools. It says we must make sure that we fund a common, efficient school system. Okay? And for going over more than 130 years, we've been doing that. But as I read our present modern day Constitution, it says nothing about us taking charge of the public schools. We have for well over a century now given that process to local school boards, okay, and entrusted them to be the management of our school boards, not the legislature. Our current structure, consistent with our Constitution, says that if somehow school boards are having problems or there's something amiss or awry, we vest the authority in what we call a Kentucky Department of Education, which has been transformed through the years from the original superintendent of public instruction till now, and a commissioner to say you can step in, and we look to your expertise, as an educated leader and knowledgeable in education, to come in and address those schools that are having problems. And I've heard nothing today, and I see nothing in what's in this bill that says that can't take place. I think the Kentucky Department of Education has done an excellent job over the years in stepping in and dealing with troubled schools and schools with financial mismanagement. And we don't hear financial mismanagement taking place here with JCPS. And I think the better result is to allow them to do that. not the legislature, because we have no authority to take charge on our Constitution and become a super Board of Education for our schools. That's not in our Constitution. Second point, Mr. Chair. I think there's a difference in recognizing that, yes, JCPS is unique as the largest school district in our state with the most students, with a budget approaching $2 billion. There's no question that makes it different from any other school district in the state. But as Dr. Yearwood testified to us today, the changes we propose has nothing to do with, I want to read this, has nothing to do with any shortcomings in the structural governance of the schools. In other words, there's no need, according to Dr. Yearwood today, to change the structural governance and make him an extraordinary superintendent. In fact, he says just reverse, that he needs collaboration. He needs input. He needs counsel and advice from the Board of Education to make it work. He doesn't need Senate Bill 1. He needs that kind of help from others who've been working with the board, working as part of the Board of Education or working with teachers to get things done right. So I want to join those 2 points by saying, yes, it can be the largest school district with the most students, and that's different. But that doesn't justify any structural governance changes that Senate Bill 1 proposed. So for those 2 very important reasons, Mr. Chair, is why I'm a no vote on Senate Bill 1.
Senator Tishner.
Explain my aye vote briefly.
Please proceed.
I'm going to be an aye, obviously. You know, when we look at the amount of money that is flowing out of this district and the size of the district and the results, we cannot keep going forward in the direction that we are. I think this is a measure we've tried to push through multiple times, and hopefully this will be the year that we're able to move it through. We need to see big change. I think with this change, I have confidence that Superintendent Yearwood will still move the district in the right direction, even under a new governance structure. Thank you.
Senator Williams. Senator Wilson.
Explain my vote.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to quote from our Constitution what it exactly says. In Section 183, it says the General Assembly shall, by appropriate legislation, provide for an efficient system of common schools throughout the state. By appropriate legislation, provide for an efficient system of common schools throughout the state. What you have here on this committee is you have two former chairmen and our current chairman, 14 years of education experience of chairing this committee. With Senator Givens, you have more than that, who's been involved with education for a long, long time. And certainly I appreciate him. The role of education belongs to the General Assembly, not to the governor, which I've had to emphasize over and over again to those that have been in charge of KDE, because we have the role of policy and we have the role of the purse. The governor can only recommend. When he goes out and recommends all of these raises, he can't somehow magically give raises. He can only recommend. Those that actually do the hard work of the budget, which starts in the House and completes its turn in the Senate, is the General Assembly. So we do have that role of responsibility over our common schools in the state of Kentucky. And for as long as I've been here, and all of us have been here, we have heard the same things over and over again in regards to Jefferson County. The achievement gaps that have not been improving, the number of failing schools that are increasing, the metrics that you want to be judged by, we have been judging you by. Dr. Yearwood, I am very hopeful and I am encouraged by you and the actions that you're taking. And this legislation to me does not hinder you, but it only helps you to achieve the goals that you're seeking in Jefferson County. And I'm very hopeful that you will achieve them. But for my place of where I'm at right now, I'm tired. I'm tired of the same things over and over and over again. The failures, and I can tell you this, I can afford, if my children were in a failing school for 1 year, I would pull them out of school and I would pay to put them in a private school. But unfortunately, a lot of parents in those schools are trapped and they cannot afford to put their kids in other schools. And so for that reason, and all that has built up over this time, I vote yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Wise. Chair West.
Along with others, I'm going to explain my vote. And this committee is way over time, and I've allowed great latitude for vote explanations, and for good reason. This is a very, very important topic that needs thorough discussion. I'm going to push back just a little bit on the idea that the legislature has been complicit in any way with what you might characterize as maybe some shortcomings at Jefferson County. 50 to 60%, why are we here today? Why is this bill being presented? One of the primary reasons is 50 to 60% of our general fund budget goes to education. Our general fund budget is approximately $16 billion. As a reminder to the general public, over the past two budgets, this legislature has invested an additional $1 billion in K-12 education. So here's the baseline. We've increased that existing funding by at least $1 billion general fund dollars. Just getting into the weeds a little bit, my staff handed me this book. It's the Kentucky District Data Profiles book, which details each district. And this is online. The general public can have this. But going back to the complicity question, I'm just going over my time since I've been in the legislature. Starting in 2015, the total per pupil expenditure in Jefferson County was $12,167. 2020, that number was $14,870. 2023, that number was $18,485. 2024, the current, just previous year's expenditure on per pupil was $18,706. So the citizens of Jefferson County, if they see that number, I would think they would consider that a very significant number and maybe adequate to provide a higher quality education. Something Senator Givens said was very, very important as legislators. Not only do we have an obligation to take care of this issue and look at it, we have a legal obligation. We swore an allegiance to the Constitution. Senator Wilson just read us part of that Constitution. And so it's my opinion that to turn a blind eye to the situation in Jefferson County would not only be unethical, It would be immoral. And we've gone on down this path for too long. And I want to thank Senator Givens for bringing this important piece of legislation that forces us and allows us to do something different. I proudly vote aye. Want to recite the vote totals?
We have 10 for yay and 2 nay.
Senate Bill 1 passes with favorable expression. Seeing no further business to